Let's move on to the second movie. We have Napoleon. Napoleon is the newest movie from the one and only Ridley Scott. You asked me, Zach, during
Yes.
our Patreon hangout, what the best Ridley Scott movie is.
I did.
And like
he's
20
got
minutes,
a lot.
20 minutes later, I just said Aliens, and I don't know if you knew what I was talking about, but I was talking about your answer, and that is that I think Alien is his best. I said Aliens. Alien is his best
Yes.
movie. I could hear Blade Runner, but to me, I'm a plug it in with Alien.
I kind of want to just say The Martian to troll you.
Shut up.
I'm going with Alien as well, though.
The Martian's not even his best comedy, and that one best comedy. But speaking of, in that sense, House of Gucci, The Last
Yes.
Duel, and
Yes.
now with this one, people got to understand where he's coming from at this point, no? This man is on a specific wavelength when it comes to these movies. And honestly, I'm looking here. I think I'm pretty consistent. 3.5, 3.5. I think I may go 3.5 on this one as well.
All
He
right.
has a specific tone that I think people are missing when it comes to these movies, where they think they're a lot more serious than they are. And that doesn't mean that they're not covering serious subject matter. But he's coming at it from an angle that is a little humorous and is very much making fun of them. And I think that's a big thing that people are finally getting because of a lot of other directors who are approaching their subjects the same way. From Killers of the Flower Moon, showcasing that all of the killers were complete and utter buffoons. I would even say some other fiction movies that kind of showcases people who become evil all do it out of like spite or these little grievances. This movie never praises Napoleon, bro. It took me a while to realize that the numbers they were calculating they weren't wins. I looked at Alina, I was like, wait, what's it calculating? She's like, it's the people who died under him. This movie hates Napoleon.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of just thinks he's like a whiny little boy.
He's a loser.
Yeah. He may not be like as short as he is in like cartoons about Napoleon, but he is like a emotionally
An imp.
and mentally stunted guy who the movie sort of theorizes that like because he doesn't feel like a conqueror in the bedroom, he decides to throw all that energy onto the battlefield.
Yeah.
He's kind of a cuck.
That he's got, and they literally call him that in the newspaper. He's a mama's boy, and that's like rooted in a big part of his impotence as well. That he's just always whining, that he's always a little too greedy, that he oversees his potential in many ways. I heard a lot of people be very disappointed on the historical accuracy of this movie. I think you and I know how to approach movies that are definitely taking an artistic route on it, what their perspective is that they're trying to cover. Knowing that, I thought it was really funny. You know, there are moments where he's like running away from a crowd and his brother's got to like hold people back. It's goofy. It's showing you that like this big emperor, because he didn't want to be king, he needed to be emperor. It was like a house of cards that he was really holding himself up on. But I don't think it belittles him to the point that it doesn't shout him out for being like an successful
A military innovator.
Yeah, like he was he was a successful idiot. Like he wasn't brave in being out on the battlefield. It's because he was too stupid that he wanted to be out there. When at no point should he have been there fighting alongside other people because he could have died. But then somehow he was spared. I think the battle sequences here, as we've seen with The Last Duel, which has a really great documentary and how they shot it, because he kind of had a bunch of cameras angled for the battle scenes there. And he takes the same approach here, where he's got like freaking 5-6 units that are filming the battles at the same time. I didn't see this on the biggest screen, but I kind of wish I made it out to the Dolby for this one, because that ice one that you see in the trailer.
Austerlitz. It's incredible. Yeah, that's look. There are sequences in this movie that are just some of the most like brutal and fully realized wartime battles that I've ever seen on the big screen.
Yeah, I know they've been saying that the dads have been out there like nodding along to everything that he does. This is definitely a dad movie, and while it is making fun of the guy, I don't know, it does show you some times where he kicked ass. And I think Joaquin Phoenix, he does a really good job in the role. But he's like the only one who's definitely not from France. It's Joaquin American Phoenix.
Yeah.
And it would take me out sometimes when he's talking with a bunch of other people. The rest of the cast is pretty good, though. Vanessa Kirby.
I thought the scenes between the two of them were particularly excellent. You know, she's, I think, doing a lot by not doing much, if that makes any sense. Just sort of like receiving his childish energy and how she responds. But yeah, I mean, there's not like a whole lot of standouts. It really is mostly Joaquin's movie, and he is quite compelling in it. Although I don't know if it's like one of the top tier Joaquin performances I've seen. Like
No,
he's always
definitely
excellent, so it's hard to match it up against Her or The Master or other movies like that.
Yeah.
Joker, if you want, even. When it comes to the movie, there are these, like, as we mentioned, like incredible sequences, and I think I enjoyed it a little bit more when it was focused on the dynamic between him and Josephine, played by Vanessa Kirby. Like, I love a couple of his really whiny lines and the these pork chops were brought to me by destiny kind of attitude.
Yeah.
It just, at a certain point, I felt like it was kind of recounting the major moments moment by moment without feeling like it was building towards something. It's more like ticking major events off of a list.
Yeah.
And when you talk about like the runtime and all that, rather than something like Killers of the Flower Moon, just to pull up a recent example, where it does feel like it's growing in some way, I felt the sameness sort of wear on me by the end. It didn't keep me from thinking it was good or think it's worth recommending, but it did keep me from thinking this was great.
That's fair. Yeah, because a lot of it is their letters that they're sharing with each other.
Yeah.
I compared a little bit to Maestro, that does the same thing, where it's recounting his life and his successes, but specifically through his relationship.
Yes.
And how they had their back and forth with his wife.
Ferrari's got a similar thing going on. We'll talk about that eventually.
Okay. Oppenheimer, let me throw that one in there too. Like,
yeah, it's the year of it.
It's the year of all of these people making these biopics of a specific person, not really looking at them as the hero of their story, but not afraid to judge them and to kind of showcase where their weaknesses were, especially when they came internally for a lot of these people from their loved ones. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I enjoyed it. I thought the scene, I think it's this one with the horse. You know what I'm talking about? Wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I thought
Wrong.
Insane, dude.
Yeah.
I thought the battle scenes were fantastic, and I thought that it had enough story in there when you're dealing with, his background on why he is who he is, why he tried to always overcompensate and try to be the bigger man. But he just had that, for that period in time, he just had that sense to him. And it always reminds me of like how Bill Belichick, the football coach, that's how he approaches the field. He's like, It's all strategic. And this man's at a certain point, he's like, it's not about the numbers or anything. It's just geometry. It's just how do you beat somebody else out? And it got to a certain point where he just became the old head. There was new waves that were coming in, and the people were against them, and it just didn't work. But he was a brute, and it was his bruteness that got him so far in war.
It's also that he doesn't really seem to have like any hangups on sending his own men to slaughter if it means that they'll win in the end. And it
gets nasty.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy. And like the thing is, though, you mentioned the calculating of the numbers and the stuff, and until the end, like I didn't realize that was kind of the point that Ridley was going for. It didn't really feel that like that was the main takeaway from most of the story. Like you, I think I was mostly focused on that sort of relationship between him and Josephine.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain point when he's talking politics with a guy, he falls asleep. He just snoozes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, for sure, I get it. I get the politics. But I kind of wanted to know a little bit more. In the beginning, they tell you, so that's the vantage point to destroy those things. If we take their vantage point, we got it. I'm like, all right, that's cool. And I agree. I wanted to know a little bit more of those insights to how we got all that stuff done. I think that would have made it a little bit better. But there's a 4-hour cut, supposedly, reportedly, allegedly, coming out to Apple TV.
Yeah.
Maybe that has all those bits in there.
He said it's better. Yeah.
Okay, for sure.
But Boat's line is definitely the best line, one of the top 10 lines of the year. Best line of the movie.
There's some good lines in there. So Napoleon, it is out in theaters. I would give it the junior price. If you can catch it in a matinee, I think it's worth catching up on the big screen. I wish I had caught it in Dolby, but it will be out soon, probably on digital, and should be ending up on Apple TV Plus since it is one of their original movies. So
we'll be talking about the Killers digital release towards the end of the show, but interesting to see how Apple's going to handle this one and whether or not they're going to let it go to VOD before Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. So Napoleon, out in theaters now.